What is going on, everyone? Carolina Buzz here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Charlotte Hornets as they get a victory over the Los Angeles Lakers, 100-97. It was the only game of the day, or of the night rather, late at night. But either way, all eyes were on us as everybody was looking at this as a revenge game for Mark Williams, and he played well. I mean, considering, I can tell, his head is not into it all the way. Also, you got to think about just not necessarily conditioning, but just getting back on the court after just missing so many days of repetition. I mean, I'm pretty sure he didn't even practice. So, there's a lot of stuff that just probably goes into that. But, I mean, he had a decent game with 10 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. I think what you saw from Mark Williams tonight is what we've seen all season. That leaves more to be desired on the defensive end, and sometimes in pick and rolls he gets a little. I think you can work Mark Williams in a pick and roll, so that's something he obviously needs to work on. Whether that's for us, whether that's another team, that's something that we've always discussed here on the channel. And anybody who covers the Hornets or talks about the Hornets or is a fan of the Hornets has recognized that. Though there's a lot of things he does well. I did see some Laker fans saying, "Oh, he hasn't touched the ball yet," and it was like 3 minutes in, and it's like, y'all obviously don't know, one, how this team works, and two, like, who do y'all think Mark Williams is? Like, that never was his game for us. But other than that, I think that Charles Lee coached I wouldn't say masterclass, because I know people say that jokingly, but sometimes when so many people say it, people start to think like they're really believing it. And so I won't say that. Like, I don't want nobody to come in here and say, "Oh, why are you saying he's a master?" But no, my point is he coached a really good game. At the end of the game, I mean, it was obvious they were just picking on Luka, and were able to do whatever they want. They, being LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, really anybody. But LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges had a fantastic game. LaMelo with 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists, and Miles with 29 points, 6 rebounds, 0 assists, but 5 steals and 1 block. So, I mean, them two, They really put on a show. I feel as though we know LaMelo was going to put on a show. One, that's just what he does, and then two, back home, like, those are the kind of games LaMelo lives for. You could hear like the clip of when he did it end up being an and one where he got the little like scoop layup at the end, the go ahead. I think it was an and one. I don't remember, but either way, you heard him. You heard him when he scored that basket. So big game for him, of course. I think that what I really like about this game, and I hate to do it like this, but everybody's going to talk about LaMelo, and he deserves all the talk. Like, I talk about LaMelo a lot, but there's other players on the team. And what I want to say about Miles Bridges is this is the Miles Bridges that we need if – I don't know what the offseason moves are going to look like. We'll have plenty of time to discuss that. But this is what the offseason with the offseason moves, depending on what direction we go in and who we get – this Miles Bridges is going to be the difference between us being in a playoff spot, like a 6 play-in spot, or downright just not in the playoffs at all. I think that health and Miles Bridges are the X factors. It sucks to say health because that really applies to everybody, but for the Hornets, it's amplified. But Miles Bridges, if you want to put it on a player, it's definitely Miles, because his game, whether he decides to be two-way, which I think tonight he was very much two-way, the steals don't tell it all. Like, he has some really good defensive possessions, steals aside. But his defensive intensity, his aggressiveness on the offensive end, that is what's going to be the difference between us in any of those 3 tiers. If we get the Miles at the very, very beginning of the season, I think we're going to have, we may not even make the play-in. Because he, at the beginning of the year, was very detrimental to the team. He wasn't efficient. He wasn't playing defense. He was just kind of out there. And it felt like one of those situations where, here we go. You pay a player, then they stop playing. And I knew he was going to bounce back. I didn't know what his bounce back would look like. My assumption would always just be that he will bounce back to a little more of what he was last year, which still left to be desired, specifically on the defensive end. I don't know what the bounce back will. I don't know if he'll ever get back to that point where he was where he got suspended essentially suspended for the year. I don't really know if he'll get back to that. But the way he's been playing lately, it looks like he has. He's being a lot more aggressive on defense, a lot more aggressive on offense. He's not settling. He's getting to the rim. I know tonight don't show it as he had literally 0 assists, but he is finding guys. I think his playmaking has been – that's something I feel as though has been highly underrated for Miles, is his ability to play make, and I think he's been doing that lately. So It's a game against the Lakers. We're 14-39, so I can't take this game and say for the future. But this is what I like to see from Miles. It's obviously not going to always look like this when Brandon comes back. Miles Bridges himself has acknowledged that when the team is healthy, it's LaMelo, Brandon, him. So I want to see what he looks like in that tertiary role for an extended period of time. Because right now, and it's easy to say this because Brandon Miller is not playing, but I have a concern of what these guys what specifically Brandon and Miles look like together on the floor. I know, during preseason, it was small talk about how LaMelo and Brandon going to figure it out together. I'm more concerned about Brandon and Miles. They're both kind of out of position. I think they're both threes, but they do it in different ways. I think Miles can participate as a four, but it was like when Brandon was on the floor, he settled a lot more, and we weren't trying to get to the rim. I mean, the only person that was really trying to get to the rim was LaMelo, and even then we know that it's not at a high rate in terms of just frequency. I would like to see Miles kind of be that guy. He has the passing ability, he has the strength, he has the finishing ability to be dangerous when he attacks the rim. He has the ability to kick out to Josh Okogie, Josh Green, LaMelo, Brandon, Nick. He has the ability to drive, draw attention, and then kick it out to those guys. He has the ability to finish over bigger defenders. He has the ability to finish over little guys. He has little post. There's a lot I like about him attacking the rim. It's just that we weren't getting much of that at the beginning of the season. New system, new coach, new teammate. A lot is playing into that, so I understand. But I definitely want to see what it looks like, specifically with Brandon and Miles, because I'm concerned to the point where we'll be good. Don't get me wrong. They're talented players, so there's no doubt about it. I shouldn't say good, but we'll be, I don't think that they'll be bad players. I think it's just more so you got to think about what's most efficient and what's best for the team. And that is my only concern, specifically with just them two, is how they will look together. We obviously are not seeing the Brandon Miller of last year where he was getting to the rim, getting to the mid-range more. It's a lot more threes and at the rim, which that was part of his system at Alabama, which ended up getting him drafted second overall. So it's not something he's unfamiliar with, but I do think that his game in the mid-range was so good last year that I don't want to take that from him. So allowing, one of them has to just – now, another thing I will say is if Brandon Miller learns how to put the ball on the floor, which we know, but pre-injury he had a lot of issues doing that. If Brandon Miller learns to put the ball on the floor, that disregard everything. I think that opens up the game for everybody. But until then, I have concerns about how they play together in terms of just having the team at its most efficient. We'll win games. They'll have great games. But it's is that what's going to get the team over the hump? I don't know. But I think there's definitely ways out of it without trading or moving anybody. It's just growth as players. So I'm interested to see that. But this Miles, this is the one that he's truly the X factor between where we will be come April next season. So we'll see. Another person I want to talk about is Nurkic. I think Nurkic, he missed every shot. He was 0 for 3, and there were 3 threes, and he was jacking them up. I think he had a good game. He's one of the – there's not too many players, specifically role players, I can look at on this team in the past few years that miss every shot, and I could say they had a good game, and I think he did. He had some gravity. He was drawing some doubles. He was able to pass out of the doubles. He was able to be on the low block. He was getting rebounds. If he wasn't able to get the rebound, he at least made it tough, tip the ball in the air, allowing someone else to get it. There was just a lot he was doing. He was very active in his 18 minutes, and he had 2 blocks and a steal. So I really like what I saw from Nurkic. I think that it's tough because now we have Mark, Nurkic, and Musa. I don't want to keep going on about the Mark Williams thing. It's over. It is what it is. But I like Nurkic. I like the idea of going into next year having Musa and Nurkic. And they're similar in terms of maybe they're both aggressive. They both like to play physical, but they have certain little skill sets that I think. Because Musa's more like the hustle aggressive, and Nurkic is just like a big body, physical aggressive. But, Musa has the ability to switch off on certain possessions, and then Nurkic has the ability to, post-play make and see the floor. So they just have different little skill sets, even though I think they're overall, I don't know how to really put it, but their approach to the game is the same, which is I'm going to be physical, I'm going to play hard and be physical, but they just do it in different ways. I don't know what it's going to look like now with Mark because I have sentiments about Mark. Him coming back doesn't change any of that. I think he can change my perception of him. It's literally just physicality, strength. A lot of the times, like I said, how Nurkic was just involved in every rebound, whether he got it or not, he was involved. It's not that same way for Mark at times. Some games, he looked incredible. Other games, it looks like almost like it did last night, even though, stat-wise, he had a pretty good game. But Nurkic, I really impressed with him. Elfrid Payton, this wasn't a good game for him, and the reason I want to bring him up because he signed that second 10-day. It wasn't that great of a game for him, but I think that he's probably our best bet when it comes to backup point guard. He has some good defensive possessions, so we'll see what happens there. Really, that's really it. Nick Smith was not himself. He looked a little off. Probably the break. I'm not going to sit here and say he should have looked himself or this is take him out. I'm not going to say any of that. Probably the break. I wouldn't be surprised if did they play tonight? I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if the next game he looks back more himself. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like the Human Torch he was before the All-Star break, but I think he'll just find his rhythm once things get rolling. And then LaMelo. We can talk about Josh Green, but there really wasn't much to talk about. This was not a good game for him or TJ Shalon. But LaMelo. What is there to say about LaMelo? I think that this was a very important. The NBA, I think they were licking their chops at this, being like, oh, well, the trade was rescinded. Let's see. This is going to be some good TV. If anything, I think it exposed them. And exposed them in a way of how do you not let LaMelo Ball make it to the All-Star game? Now, I don't know how this is going to come off. This is just my thoughts. You know me. If you disagree or we want to talk about it in the comments, please, let's do it. I have no problem. But I am almost glad he didn't make it, only because I saw what they did to Cade. I saw what they did to Sengun. I saw what they did to these other players. Now, as far as his whole career and how many All-Star games, because that goes into how you think of players overall. I do wish he made it, but in terms of that would have just made me mad. That's maybe it's obviously a very personal reason. Of course, I actually want him to make it. I want him to have that accolade. But that would have made me mad. They did not have those guys in the game like that. And I don't know. I think that we hear so much about, and really it was the format that messed it up because if a team lost, I think the team that Jalen Brunson owned lost, so then that was kind of it. You didn't see them anymore for the rest of the night. But either way, even in the past, it's kind of been oh, well, we let the old heads play because, we don't know when they'll come back. I don't know, man. The NBA is it's getting really talented, really, really talented. They're obviously, I think the floor has risen. I don't think that we have anyone at that ceiling. We have guys who are projected to break this ceiling. And be the next. I say next. I don't mean how good, or I just mean to be the face. Or so we have LaMelo. LaMelo could be in there when the Hornets are good. Luka, all these guys. Jason Tatum, of course. Jaylen Brown. Donovan Mitchell could even reach there. Devin Booker. All these guys. Wemby, of course. But we don't know when the young guys are going to get there again either. LaMelo is different. LaMelo, different case. I have full faith that once this team is good, he's going to be a consecutive All-Star, and it's going to be no problem. That's how I feel. But I'm thinking about the Senguns. As much as I like Sengun, I love Sengun as a player. Sabonis probably should have made it over him. And in those situations, okay, maybe next year, if the Rockets aren't so good and the Kings are better, when will we see Sengun again? And it's not like he may not be deserving. I think he was less deserving this year, but still, going forward. It just makes me wonder. Now, granted, every year you're going to have some guys come down and some guys go up, but it does make me wonder about, how the All-Star game is formatted. I understand, I don't know. I think the year LaMelo played it, I think that was a good balance. It was enough to see, him on the stage and whatnot. But my point is particularly to how this is formatted. Hopefully it's not like that going forward. But, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't like it. I hope they never bring it back. But, yeah, I would have been highly upset seeing LaMelo play and my light went out. But it might cut back on. We'll see. I would have been really upset to see LaMelo play as little as some of those guys did in the All-Star game, especially considering he was number one in fan voting. Now, I'm more upset that he wasn't there at all, but you get the point. Anyway, I think the NBA was licking their chops to say, oh, Mark Williams' revenge game, let's see what they do. But no, this just showed that LaMelo should have been an All-Star because he was the clutch guy. He played winning basketball. He does what LaMelo does, and he did it his way. I like that, on the biggest stage back home, he could have easily been like, and this is not who he is. Like, this is just more so generally speaking, but he could have easily been like, oh, I'm going to show them and then play like this, like what you would imagine what perfect basketball would be like. But that's not him. That's not what he does. He plays this eccentric style of basketball, and I'm really happy that he did that in this game because it just shows you, like, no, he can win this way. He beat the Lakers, who have Luka and LeBron. You can say whatever you want about them gelling or whatever. We're missing our second guy. We're missing our second best player, our sixth, seventh, and eighth man. Like, I mean, come on. But I just think it was on a big stage, and I think he showed what he could do. So, I mean, props to LaMelo, but always is a props to LaMelo. He's been really good for us this year, and I hope that it carries on to next year. I do want to speak on the Lakers a little bit because, as you all know, it does get frustrating talking about just this team just because of the fact that we lose. We are 14-39 still, so I do want to talk about the Lakers a little bit just so I can talk hoops. But LeBron, I mean, people are getting on him because I think he's like 1-29 since as a Laker, missing shots in late game, fourth quarter, and OT. But, I mean, he took 2 threes. When has LeBron has become a better three-point shooter, but when has he ever been like, you know what I mean? And they needed a three. That's where, like, maybe Luka or Austin Reeves, he was ejected, but still. Like, those guys you would have. This were Mac Christie would have been useful. But, yeah, I think that's kind of – it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I get it. Like, he's supposed to be the king and all that stuff, but I don't know. I don't put too much weight on that. I'm also not a Laker fan. But I think that they played pretty good defense on Luka. He had some open shots that he just missed. He did look like he was out of touch a little bit, but I mean, I think it's all just him trying to get back into the groove of things after. Because think about it, before he was traded, he didn't play for Dallas for a minute, so it's a lot for him to have to come back. But I get from the Lakers standpoint, you traded AD for this guy. You rather him find his groove on the court. You don't really have time to like be missing both Luka and AD. So I understand your point, but I think the Lakers, I think they're going to be fine. They do need a center. I think that they got away with it in this game just because it's not that we don't have a center. It's just more so we're not the most imposing center. For them, they got to play the Lakers. I mean, not the Lakers, but they got to play. They run into the Sabonis's. They run into the Wembys. They run into the Jokic's. They run into even the Gobert. Like, they have a lot of guys. Isaiah Hartenstein, who I'm not saying he's this elite center, but he is going to put pressure on your center. And when your center is Jackson Hayes, you know what I mean? So I think they're going to be fine, but it's not going to be easy. And as I see it getting a little darker, I'll hurry this up. I think overall we played really good defense. I think Coach Charles Lee did a fantastic job coaching. I question his coaching at times, but I think he did a really good job of just adjusting. And that's something that I feel as though even Cliff, as much as I like Cliff, I just think that he's more of is he a ceiling? I don't know the word for it. He makes your ceiling higher, but he can. It's only as it's not like he's exponentially going to make your team better. Your team has to be good, and then I think he can get them over the hump. So if your team is a team that's like a bubble team in the playoffs every year, like they may make it, may not, he's the guy to get that team over the hump and maybe into the second round. But I didn't think he was like a real ceiling raiser, and I think part of that was that he lacked adjustments. It would take him games to make adjustments, but I think Charles Lee is doing a pretty good job of making adjustments. Now, there's some things he sticks to that I think he just wants to see what works, but I don't think that he should, such as like he small ball lineups late and whatnot. But overall, I think he did a really good job, specifically against the Lakers. And I know that even more incentive is that the Hornets and the Lakers, they were fighting over JJ Redick, which I told everybody, like, I liked both. I really had no problem with it, but if I'm JJ Redick, I'm going to the Lakers. I mean, it just simply makes sense. So, I think Coach Lee did a good job with what he has. I mean, he's been doing a great job, I think, with what he has. It helps that you have a healthy LaMelo, and I think should continue to see a healthy LaMelo. Maybe up until there's 15 games left, then we can kind of die down a little bit. But up until then, I think if we have another 15 games, I think he should play. But overall, I think it was a good game. Can't wait to see. I think we play the Nuggets next, so that's going to be interesting because Jokic always dominates. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.